Time blindness is typically where you are not able to understand how much time it will take to do things. We have real difficulty sticking to schedules. That makes us really unemployable, to be honest. That's why we need to have a business because, if we're told that we have to turn up to work at 9 o'clock, well, we're arriving at 10 past 9. Underestimating or overestimating time, like I said, how long has time passed? I will sit down to do something and then look back up, 2 or 3 hours have passed, and I'm like, I haven't even started doing the thing that I'm meant to do. There are some solutions that work. Welcome to the ADHD Fempreneur Podcast, where we unleash the power of the ADHD entrepreneurial mind. I'm Kerry Fitzgibbon. Ladies, let's turn your superpower into success. Welcome to this week's episode of the ADHD Fempreneur, and this week we're tackling ADHD and time blindness. Now, we all know what time blindness is, but it can, manifest its way and manifest in different ways depending on who you are. And I don't think there's many ADHDers out there that don't suffer from some form of time blindness. But what I find with the ADHD that tends to be a bit anxious or has sort of more anxiety side of ADHD, which isn't me, I don't get massively anxious, but people that do, then they tend to probably overmask this stuff and go to the opposite extreme. So let's jump first into what time blindness is for an ADHD and certain things that we might be able to do to be less, time blind to a certain extent. All right. So time blindness, it's actually interesting because I only just heard about it recently, right? So diagnosed only, less than a year ago. So before then, I didn't know I had ADHD. So I didn't realize that it was a thing to be time blind with ADHD. So not to be able to, regulate how long it would take to get places, how long it would take to do things, time speeding up or slowing down and so on. So I didn't know that it was a thing. I just thought there was something wrong with me. Since knowing that I'm ADHD and really looking into it, I have started to realize that, okay, it's a thing, and that's all cool because that makes me feel not quite so bad about it, I guess. And that, there are certain things that you can do to, help make it less stressful. So time blindness is typically where you are, not able to, understand how much time it will take to do things. So it can start with things like, at school, you get given a project and you go, okay, well, I've got this project and I've got 6 weeks to do this project. And then after you don't realize that you might need to, which other people do, spend half an hour each day, doing bits of the project to get it completed in time. It comes to the night before the project is due in, and typically an ADHD will jump in and go, all right, I've got this project now. Oh boy, I've now got to sit up all night and get it submitted. So that's part of time blindness, not actually realizing, right, okay, well, I need to delegate a certain amount of time to make sure that this thing happens in time. So we often miss deadlines as well. That's a very, very common thing. Probably one of the really, really common things, but most annoying for other people is the fact that we can be late, often late places. And it doesn't matter how important it is to be on time that we can still be late. And it's things like flights, missing flights. I'm an ex-journalist, right? So I trained as a journalist. Now, it is super important as a journalist to actually turn up to the thing that you're reporting on time or reporting on it as it happens. That's super important. So for me, it actually really, really affected my career as a journalist because I was late a lot of places and missed a few stories because of it. So some of the other different ways that time blindness can show up include poor time estimation, which I've gone through a little bit, not understanding how long it takes to get places. Oh, driving. Everything's 5 minutes. I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure we're all the same. It's like if someone says to you, what time, no, let's just say you're meant to be going and meeting someone somewhere. And let's put it this way. Google Maps will say it's half an hour. But you don't actually believe Google Maps because you're like, that'll take me about 5 minutes. And it's always 5 minutes or 10 minutes when it's actually really 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And because you have this in your head that everywhere takes 5 to 10 minutes, if it's relatively close, if it's further, like if it's going to be an hour drive, well, it's half an hour. So that's kind of how the math works. But because this is in your head, that's how you actually plan your leaving time and so on. So poor time estimation on actually how long it takes to get places is an issue. Also overcommitting, right? So for some reason, we tend to, say to someone, it's a bit of people pleasing at the same time, but overcommitting to doing things. So, someone will say, hey, do you want to go out for dinner, on Wednesday night? Yep, absolutely. And then someone else will say, hey, listen, we've got this thing, the gym, do you want to come on Wednesday night? Yep, absolutely. Where it actually shows up in business is double appointments, like double booking appointments is quite a thing, or overcommitting things that you can do in that work week that you'll never be able to get through. But because you have time blindness and you don't understand how long it takes to do stuff, then you can quite often end up overcommitting and letting everyone down, including yourself. Because we're people pleasers at the same time. If we overcommit, we let people down. We also cause a lot of stress for ourselves as well, thinking about this thing. And that's all caused, with time blindness as well. Underestimating or overestimating time, like I said, how long has time passed? I can be sitting there, working, and I know that, I have to be off a certain job onto another job in 30 minutes. And I will literally probably sit there and not do anything until 10 minutes before I know the deadline for that thing is, right? Or I will sit down to do something and then look back up and 2 or 3 hours have passed. And I'm like, I haven't even started doing the thing that I'm meant to do. So these are all things that are, very, very real for us. We have real difficulty creating or sticking to schedules. That makes us really unemployable, to be honest. That's why we need to have a business because, if we're told that we have to turn up to work at 9 o'clock, well, we're arriving at 10 past 9. And so, it doesn't work for us. If someone puts together any kind of schedule for us, even like for me, I, run. The reason why I choose running as an exercise is there is no schedule. I don't have to turn up to a certain time to do a class. I tried doing aerobics and I tried CrossFit and I tried F45, and I would be great for the first week or two, always arriving in the door 5 minutes before the class started, but going there consistently doing that until it got to the stage that, a couple of weeks down the track, I'm like, I don't really want to come in late again. They keep telling me off. I'm disrupting the class and I give up. Right? And these are the things that happens to us. So running, makes it a lot easier because it's my own schedule. I don't have to stick to a schedule and I can be late. It just means that, all right, I run for 5 minutes or 10 minutes less as well. So another way time blindness shows up is, constantly losing track of time. We just don't know. It's not important. It's not that it's not even important. It's just isn't in our brain. It's irrelevant, and the underestimating and the overestimating and so on. And recently we went to Japan and I took my family there, and my partner is neurotypical, and he often tells me before we go anywhere, he gives me the half an hour. So as in, if we're meant to be somewhere at 6 o'clock, he tells me we have to be there at 5:30, just so that we can get there at 6 o'clock, okay? So recently we did the same thing when we're going to Japan. So we're flying out and we're all getting ready to go to the airport. My daughter, she's ADHD, but she's anxious. So she had the bag packed the week before. My partner had the bag packed the day before. My son and I are still packing our bags as we're running out the door. We've forgotten most of our things, and luckily we hand over our passports to my partner, so he's got them, so we didn't have to worry about that. And then we get to the airport, but the only reason why we get there in time is my anxious ADHD daughter is like, come on, let's go. But the interesting thing about that is, and again, this is what happens to us, and I know it's probably happened to you guys if you've gone to the airport, it's the when you have to go to the gate. Now, they all say you got to go to the gate half an hour before the flight's meant to take off. But we know that you can go to the gate 5 minutes beforehand and you can get on that plane. So often we'll sit there and it'll be like warning 1, warning 2, and then eventually it's like, oh, okay, we'll go now. And then your name's being called across the loudspeaker. Every single time I hear a name being called across the loudspeaker at an airport, we're calling this because we're boarding now, I kind of guess it's possibly an ADHD. But actually the key around that, there's a little secret travel hack for you guys. Secret travel hack. They don't take off on you if you've got check-in luggage. I tend to not do check-in luggage because I'll forget it when I get off at the other end, and I'll walk out of the airport and the check-in luggage is still going around the carousel. Sure, that happens to most of us. So I carry on. But but if you scared that you're not going to get on that plane in time, which often happens to me, and they'll call you if you've got check-in luggage. They won't take off. Just a little secret hack, okay? All right. So if you are struggling with, being late, underestimating time, getting things, not getting deadlines in time, and so on, there are some solutions that work. All right. So one of the solutions that I do that helps a bit, and it's not perfect, but helps a little bit, is I write notes. I write little notes and lists everywhere, and then I put alarms all over my phone. Okay. I have alarms for absolutely everything and anything, right? So I actually had an alarm for most of the kids' schooling years, primary school years, and it was pick up kids. And they laugh and they're like, but Mum, why wouldn't you remember to pick us up? And I'm like, well, how many times before I set those alarms did I forget? And even with the alarms, I still would be late, right? But the alarm would be at 2:30 to pick up kids by 3 o'clock. I'd be leaving home at 10 to 3 with a 30-minute travel, and they'd be the kids sitting there waiting for their mum to pick them up. But they do work a lot better because there were actually, before I set my alarms up to pick up the kids, I would literally be sitting there in time blindness. Time would go by and then the school would be ringing me going, have you forgotten something, Kerry? So setting alarms, setting timers as well works sometimes. One of the things that I know most of us do is we actually make our timepieces, so our watches or our phones, you manually set them to 10 to 15 minutes ahead. This can work for a little while. However, then we know that they're 10 to 15 minutes ahead, so we always adjust to that. But in the initial stages when you do this can work. But when you trick your mind and go, it's 10, 15 minutes ahead, it's less so. Sometimes visual schedules can work as well. So one of the things that we should be doing is including buffer time in our schedule. We should be doing it. So if you've got a schedule, color coding it with our ADHD brains can work really, really well. And then putting like a color code of buffer between one task or one thing and the next thing, because one of the things that we struggle with sometimes is changing from one thing into another task and whatever else. So having that buffer in between. And I know that works for some. It doesn't work for me because I just adjust and go, well, that's buffer time, so I can move into that. So I've now got an extra 10 minutes of time, and then I'll end up running 1, 2, 3, 5 minutes overtime as well. All right. I actually have had to set up focus on my computer. So I actually set it into focus mode. So I get no other distractions if I really, really need to focus on a task, and it has to be done completely on time at a specific deadline. Then I'll put focus control on. What I tend to do, and I know a lot of other ADHDers do, is we just get really, really good if we have to get any kind of project in or work done by a deadline, is pulling all-nighters and hyper-focusing on that thing that we have to do at the last minute, and that's the only time we can do it. And if that works for you and you don't get too stressed about it, then that's okay. Make that okay for you. But one of the things I think with time blindness and how I've, been able to get through it, I guess, in the last year, whereas I couldn't before, is I know what it is now. Right? And I'm not as hard on myself. I used to kick myself for being late. I used to kick myself for leaving things to last minute. I used to kick myself for underestimating how long things would take, for double booking appointments, and all that sort of stuff. And I used to be really hard on myself, and me being hard on myself, would project it to other people, and I guess they were a bit hard on me as well. Oh, Kerry's always late. Oh, you're disrespectful, and so on and so on and so on. And it was difficult when I didn't know. What I found, and I wrote lists and I had the alarms going and whatnot, and it still didn't make much of a difference. But what I've found now that I know I have ADHD, that it is, an executive functioning issue, that my brain works amazing in some levels, less amazing in others, I'm actually kinder on myself, and it's less of a problem. And now what I do is I tend to tell people. So let's just say someone, I'm booking an appointment with a client, right? I now tell them, listen, I can't book that appointment if they ask me to. I've got a Calendly link, or speak to my PA, she'll book you in, but don't ask me to, because I'll probably double book you. Or, and then when we book in, we just say, hey, listen, Kerry will be online within this time and this time. Sometimes she runs a little bit late. We just forewarn people now, because no matter how much I want to, be on time, how much I want to, get things done in a certain time frame, and that I know that it is really difficult. So I just just be kind to yourself. Understand that it's a quirk. It's not okay for some people, but make time blindness okay for you. Adjust it into your life, knowing that that's actually what it is and what you'll do, and just let people know about it. And, okay, I might be 5 to 10 minutes late, right? Or, okay, that project might take me, a little bit longer than I thought it would. But here's the deal. You're going to get, hyper-focus me when I'm there. You're going to get a super, compassionate, kind, loving person when I'm around, who, really cares really hard about, friends and family and clients and whatever else. So whereas, it might be a fault in one ways, or something that's not acceptable to some people, there's so many other things that are, we have amazing traits that are okay on the other level. So that's kind of what I've started to do nowadays to deal with it, because let's face it, fighting and battling time blindness hasn't worked. I don't know whether it ever will work. There are certain things that we can do to, make it, to help a little bit. But if we know that's what we're like, then be kind and just let others know that that's what they can expect, perhaps from you, and it's okay. It really is okay. So if you're feeling like you're resonating with this, and maybe you've got a bit of time blindness in your life and have been struggling with it and putting yourself down and whatnot, I hope this has really helped you sort of see it in another light and say, yeah, these are the things, this is how we identify it, and it is actually okay, and life still goes on, and you're still amazing, and you've got so many other, beautiful ADHD traits that overcompensate for maybe the one or two that are less so. So if this sounds like you, and you want to know, more help with, being an ADHD fempreneur in this busy, crazy world, make sure that you do subscribe on Apple Podcast or on Spotify. Follow me on my socials. And if you have got any suggestions on things that you want me to cover, just leave a comment below and let's see whether I can tackle those in perhaps another episode. And speaking of which, I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.